our upcoming DevOps architect has vast experience in consulting and coaching organizations in enhancing agility at team, program, and enterprise levels. He has authored the best selling book Enterprise Agility Being Agile in a Changing World. Presently serving as the Principal Consultant Advisory at ThoughtWorks, he has worked with senior executives to shape and execute the roadmap for change. He'll be steering today's session by sharing his immense knowledge on how every enterprise, regardless of the size and age, is being impacted by technology-driven, fast-paced changes. He shall also discuss on what is expected in this era to lead. With that, I would now like to invite Mr. Sunil Mundra to take on the conversation. Let's all welcome him.
Hello, everyone. The topic on which I'm going to be speaking is leading in VUCA Times. I want to thank everyone for attending my talk today, and let's hope we can have an interesting Q&A after the talk. So my name is Sunil Mundra. I work as Principal Consultant Advisory at ThoughtWorks, been with ThoughtWorks for 10 plus years, total 31 years of experience, of which 20 years is in the IT industry. I'm currently an enterprise agile consultant and a leadership coach. And I'm author of this book, Enterprise Agility, Being Agile in a Changing World, which was released 3 years ago. The primary premise of the book is that organizations are living systems and should be modeled as such. So just last week, this news came in. BMW adds Amazon Alexa to 1.3 million vehicles with over-the-air update. This is something I think we all will agree that was quite unimaginable until a few years ago. But these kind of things are becoming very commonplace right now. And this really is a sampler of what's going to be coming in as part of Industrial Revolution 4.0 or Industry 4.0. So we are in an Industry 4.0 era where every enterprise, regardless of size and age, is being impacted by technology-driven fast-paced change. And what does Industry 4.0 look like? I mean, it is still evolving, but this is probably the best visual representation that I could find in terms of what it looks like. So what you can see here is a lot of interconnectedness between various devices, entities, people, etc. So Industry 4.0 is something which is going to take the integration of technology with the real world to a very different level. So what does that mean? What are some of the things which are happening in the current era? First, we have intersections of domains and devices. So we have, what do I mean by domains? By domains, I mean the technical domains of artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud, data, etc. And when I'm speaking of devices, these are all IoT related devices which are now talking to each other. I mean, the Alexa update to the BMW cars is a good example of such an interaction. The next one is about disruptive innovations. So technology is creating a lot of possibilities. A lot of things are happening with respect to digital channels, how consumers are interacting with companies, how software is driving innovation across industries and causing disruptions. So that's another important feature of the current era. The next one, which is not a surprise now for many people, is automation. So a lot of automation has happened as part of Industry 4.0 and is still happening in the manufacturing sector, but it's also going to happen in the technology space. In fact, there is serious talk about the fact that you can probably have machines writing code, which means that our developers who write code currently will have to move to doing some value-adding work, in addition to the automation that they will need to provide for. We have rise of platforms, and platforms are again of two kinds. One is the kind of platforms which are impacting the lives of customers. For example, we have Uber as a platform to provide transportation service. We have Airbnb as a platform to provide hospitality related services, and so on. And then we have platforms also coming up now in the area of cloud, etc., where a platform is provided, and then any organization who's using that platform can build their services around it. And the last but not the least is that there is now increase in collaboration across different entities. So competitors are now sharing data with each other. Customers and suppliers are sharing data with each other. So there's a lot of sharing and collaboration happening with respect to sharing of infrastructure, sharing of data, sharing of technical know-how, etc. So again, this is, I think, an important trend, which is quite different from the past, where entities would isolate themselves. But today, I think organizations are understanding the importance of co-creation and collaboration. And this is another trend, which is again characteristic of Industry 4.0. So what does this all mean, right, in terms of the primary characteristic of Industry 4.0? We can conclude that this era can be characterized by the term VUCA. And as shown on the slide, it stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And this really is going to be something which is going to be not only prevalent going forward, but will increase as we face many unknown situations that we have never encountered before. And this is moving away from the paradigm of predictability, certainty, and stability, which we have been used to for decades, ever since the second industrial revolution. So this is a big change that's happening in the external environment, which as leaders, as organizations, we will have to deal with effectively. So I have studied organizations and as part of my consulting work. And these are some of the characteristics which differentiate organizations which are dealing well with VUCA versus those which are not. In the interest of time, I'm just going to talk about the last one, but the others are fairly obvious. But the last one I do want to highlight is the role of technology. In an organization which is dealing well with VUCA, technology is a strategic enabler. It's a strategic imperative for organizations, as opposed to those organizations who are just treating technology as a tactical function, or IT as a tactical function, and as a support function. And I think, of course, organizations are beginning to understand the importance of technology today, but I think many organizations still have a very, very long way to go to truly treat technology as a strategic function. And this is going to be an absolute imperative if organizations and leaders can deal with VUCA in an effective way. So this is the challenge which organizations are facing today, which is the gap in sustainability. And technological disruptions, technological innovations are creating lots of opportunities for organizations. And as you can see, organizations, in terms of having the capabilities to exploit those opportunities, are not evolving fast enough. And therefore, this gap between the opportunities and the capabilities of the organization is a sustainability gap which organizations must strive to keep it to a minimum, if not bridge fully, if they are to be in a position to exploit the opportunities which Industry 4.0 will present through VUCA. So to thrive in VUCA, what is that enterprise needs to be able to deal with it effectively? And that inherent quality is agility. Now, this is a very broad term, but I have to unpack it a little bit, it has three underlying capabilities which are crucial for organizations to be able to deal with VUCA, to be able to anticipate change, and to be able to evolve with change. And these three capabilities are the ability to sense the environment, the ability to adapt, and the ability to respond. And these three capabilities, and there could be many more. You could have resilience. Some organizations may need efficiency as a capability. But I would say that these three are the minimum core capabilities which every organization needs in terms of trying to enhance their agility. And therefore, developing these three capabilities is going to be very critical for organizations to be able to thrive in a VUCA environment. All right, so let's look at what does this mean in terms of actions which organizations and leaders can take. Let's first look at some of the things or some of the implications at the organization level. First is model the enterprise as a living system. What do I mean by that? This is really as I said, the primary premise of my book, that organizations and enterprises have been complex adaptive systems. But as part of how they got modeled during Industry 2.0 or the Industrial Revolution 2.0, based on Frederick Taylor's principles, we have modeled many of our enterprises as machines, as silos, as something which will optimize for predictability and certainty. So those are the kind of organizations which are struggling to deal with fast-paced change, because if you have to deal with change, you have to evolve. And that's true for anything which has survived change, be it human beings, be it any kind of living species, be it socio-economic systems. And organizations, therefore, must be modeled as a living system and not as a machine if it has to deal with VUCA and evolve with change. The second one, and very important one, is stop treating the technology function as a cost center. So this is a huge mindset issue and a modeling issue as well. So for many decades, technology was a supporting function, and it had a role to play, but it was never strategic in nature. But now we know that technology is driving strategy for many organizations, and technology is now a part of core offerings of any organization, regardless of the industry in which it operates. As the CEO of ING Bank once said, we are a technology company with a banking license. So organizations which are thriving in the VUCA world and in Industry 4.0 are treating themselves as technology companies primarily. And if you have to do that, you've got to treat your technology function a little bit differently. It certainly cannot be treated as a cost center because it drives a very different set of behaviors. So technology function must be given the importance it deserves. It must be given an equal seat at the table along with the business function. Next is about shortening feedback loops. And I think this is very important when you are trying something new. Experimentation is going to be the way forward if organizations are to come up with disruptive ideas. So disruption can again be dealt with in two ways. One is you can create some disruption and gain some competitive advantage, or you be in a position where you are only reacting to disruptions created by your competitors. So if you are to try a few things, some will work, some will not. And it is important to have feedback loops which are short enough to tell you what's working, what's not working, so that something which is not working as an experiment can be stopped right away, and something which is working, you can double down upon and put more resources behind that experiment to take it forward. And to be able to do that, I think having short feedback loops is very, very important. And this again requires the organizations to be structured very differently. A typical hierarchical or a very tall hierarchy organization where there is separation of the thinkers and the doers does not enable feedback loops to be quite short, because the decision making is separated from the people on the ground, and the sensing mechanisms are very weak in terms of both understanding what's happening on the ground and being able to respond to it. As we discussed earlier, that collaboration is a big trend that's happening right now. So I think organizations need to explore collaboration opportunities across all the entities in the ecosystem. So it could be competition as well, right? I mean, if you have some complementary products, if you can share some data, if you can serve your customers by collaborating in a better way, why not? It could be collaboration with your partner suppliers. It could be collaboration with some technical advisory bodies. It could be collaboration with people providing different types of infrastructure so that you can leverage each other's strengths. So there are many opportunities to collaborate. And I think organizations should explore these kind of opportunities to see how you can co-create something and leverage the strengths of respective organizations. I briefly spoke about innovation, but it requires a huge culture change to be able to do that. And I think making this cultural change to foster that spirit of innovation is going to be very important to be able to sense the environment and respond to it appropriately, and also create opportunities for coming up with offerings which will give competitive advantage. And innovation requires a spirit of experimentation. And by definition, an experiment carries a possibility of failure. Why this is really important in terms of a cultural perspective is because in many organizations, failure is treated as a bad word. Risk is something which is to be avoided, and that will need to change if organizations are going to be fostering a culture of innovation. All right, so let's look at some of the implications from a leadership perspective. This is obvious. Leaders need to embrace VUCA as part of the mindset change. Again, why is this so difficult for many leaders even as of now? The reason is because for decades, leaders have been rewarded for keeping things status quo, for keeping things stable, for keeping things predictable. And a leader who did that maybe 20, 30 years ago was considered a fantastic leader, that things are just stable. There is no turbulence for the organization. And the leader was supposed to be a good leader if he or she was able to achieve that. But aiming for stability and predictability in a VUCA world is something which will not go down well. And therefore, leaders will need to embrace this VUCA mindset. And what does that mean in terms of practical behavior? It means that leaders will face situations which they have not encountered before, which means all their past experience in terms of dealing with any kind of situation is not of much use. It requires leaders to be learning something. It will require the leaders to become vulnerable to say, I don't know the answer to this. Let's figure it out together. It will require leaders to work with people who are closer to the ground, people who are cross-functional, embrace diversity of thought to be able to come up with responses to a VUCA environment, which will predict sudden and unpredictable kind of situations. COVID crisis is a perfect example, although unfortunately, it is also a health crisis, but there will be many other such disruptions which will happen and come in the technology area where we will be scrambling to find ways to deal with those kind of situations. And I think the COVID crisis has given a taste of what VUCA means to many organizations who have really had to go to the drawing board back again to understand how now to deal with customers in a different way and how to embrace digital transformation. This point, engage with the ecosystem, is about uh, trying to co-create things with entities in the ecosystem. And as I said, again, it could be your vendor partners, it could be your suppliers, it could be your customers as well. It could be organizations which provide, niche services. So how do you engage with all these entities rather than reinvent the wheel yourself? Because change is happening at a very fast pace. If you reinvent the wheel from the beginning, the opportunity is gone, and by the time you come up with a response, it might be too late. So it is in the interest of the organization to see what's available right now, and is there a way for organizations and entities to collaborate to create a win-win situation for everyone to deal with this VUCA environment and to deal with technology-related disruptions. This is again an important point where many organizations are still in two minds about modernizing their legacy systems, which in many organizations are actually becoming impediment to embracing digital technologies. Now, legacy systems by themselves are not bad at all. They have served the organization, especially in industries like banking, for decades, right? And they still have a very valuable role to play. But they have a role to play in what we call as being systems of record. And the problem today is that the customer now is dealing with systems of engagement which are digital in nature. And these new systems of engagement, which are based on new technologies, which are based on new digital channels, do not fit well with the legacy systems. The legacy is not designed to support these digital channels and this fast churn of technology. So organizations have to look at legacy to see which are the areas of legacy which are hampering adoption of digital technologies. And they will need to carve those areas out of the legacy to create a different layer of systems of differentiation, right? And that's where your microservices, your platforms, etc., would come up, where you can then be in a better position to embrace digital technologies, and also, you can continue to use the legacy for non. I would say non-critical business functions like accounting, payroll, etc., where a lot of accuracy is needed, a lot of computational power is needed, but those kind of functions do not need to necessarily engage with the systems of engagement. This is again going back to the differentiation between organizations which are dealing well with VUCA versus those which are not, right? We spoke about technology being treated as a strategic enabler. And I think organizations, regardless of the industry they are in, they need to look at the opportunities to make technology at the core of their strategy. Yeah, so tech at core has to be the mantra. And I think, again, from a leadership perspective, this will need a mindset change. Often in many organizations, even today, the CIO or the CTO is made to report into the COO or the CEO. They are not even getting an equal seat at the table with the other C-level execs. That's got to change, right? The collaboration between the technology function and the business functions has to be far greater. In fact, I would even say that there should be technology representation at the board level. How many board of directors even today have someone who is representing the technology function? Very, very few, unless you are a technical service providing company. But if you look at companies whose business is not technology, how many boards of directors of those companies have technology as a representation at the board level? Extremely few. That has got to change. Industry 4.0 is all about revolution in technology. And if we have to leverage the opportunities which are coming because of that revolution, then I think we need technology as a strategic partner, as a strategic enabler, and that representation has to happen right at the board level and then at other levels within the organization as well. Now, Industry 4.0, as we discuss, will mean a lot of automation, will mean a lot of new domains coming up, right? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, data related stuff, cloud related stuff, blockchain, and who knows what. What this will mean is organizations will need to invest in reskilling its people. And this is an investment which organizations must give priority to. Again, all of this cannot be treated as a cost. It needs to be treated as an investment. And I'm sure that this investment will pay off big time. And there is no point in digging the well when you are feeling thirsty. So I think organizations need to anticipate which of the technology trends they might get impacted by and make sure that the people are reskilled well in time to be able to take on those technologies. And even though the churn of technology is quite fast, but the point is that some kind of reskilling is definitely going to be needed so that people can perform higher value added work and adapt to these changing technologies as quickly as possible. All right. So what do we conclude, based on what I have just shared? You can treat VUCA environment as an opportunity, or you can treat it as a threat. Clearly, if you have to survive as an organization, you need to treat VUCA as an opportunity and not as a threat. Because if you treat it as a threat, it just means that you are being reactive. And given the fast pace of change that's there, your reactiveness is not going to be adequate to ensure your survival. But this is not just about survival. This is about creating opportunities for an organization to grow. And if that has to happen, right, VUCA needs to be looked at as an opportunity. Industry 4.0, the possibilities it presents needs to be looked at as an opportunity. So, VUCA equals opportunity. Embrace it is my request to all of you. Thank you very much.